Can you imagine your life where money is your friend, working with you to achieve all your dreams and desires? If you struggle seeing money as your friend, then join Kathy Cook Noble, financial advisor and educator on understanding how your money can work for you. It is possible. Now, here is Financially Speaking with Kathy Cook Noble.
Good afternoon and welcome to Financially Speaking on the Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Kathy Cook Noble, and every Monday we get together and we tackle a topic of finance that has either gotten someone confused or in trouble, or they just had something come along where they didn't quite understand it and they get a little bit worried about a topic, and we take them all on. So every topic we actually do on the show has come from either a client of mine during my daytime where I'm a financial advisor and bookkeeper, or in conversation when just family and friends have questions and they're like, I don't really understand this, or what did they mean? I saw this on TV. And that's where the shows come from. So anytime I do a topic, it's not because it's necessarily my favorite topic, but I'm not going to lie, most of the financial topics are my favorite. So I love to take them on. And that's what we do here every Monday night. And on the Inspired Choices Network, it's just a beautiful tie-in because truly the network is an all-inclusive, holistic look at everything. And finance is just that one tiny piece that I get to be part of. And the financial topics are my area. The other areas that are super important to make your whole life really work and to be healthy and happy is the physical stuff, the mental stuff, all aspects of your life. And obviously the financial part fits into that as well. So I always tell people that if there's something that you're missing or you just need a little bit of support on, whether it's parenting, whether it's helping your business, whether it's helping a relationship, whether it's help in real estate, then that just plug yourself in to the host that shares all that information. And I'm specifically talking about real estate tonight because we do have a very special guest that I'm going to introduce in just a minute. So please join us in the chat room when you're live, if you're listening to us live tonight. If you're not listening to us live tonight, that's okay because we have an app and it is absolutely free to download. It works on your Android, it works on your iPhone. It is super, super easy. You can have it downloaded at our first break and have it all working and ready to go in no time flat. It's that simple. And we're on over 250 platforms. You can find us anywhere that works for you, for your timing. So if you're able to watch us live on Mondays, that's fantastic. If you're not, then that's okay. We're in on the network. The whole network is on the app and you're able to plug yourself into whatever show at whatever time that works for you. So I encourage everyone to do that. Now tonight I do have a super, super special guest that I have been very much looking forward to because this is a great opportunity for us to learn a lot about real estate. And I get a lot of questions every day about real estate. And what a lot of people don't know is I spent 20 years in land development and I love real estate. And when I get asked about it, it's exciting, but it's not my area of expertise. So I never have a place where I can reference to say, hey, this is where you go. We have general conversations, but tonight we actually have a real expert who's in it and knows it inside and out, in and every day. For 25 years, Liza has been passionately involved in what is now being called the cohousing movement. And Liza's deep and diverse background in tourism and events has included leading groups on world famous European river cruises, managing eco guest houses in Bondi Beach, Australia, and being employed by 2 Olympic Games. She is not fooling around. She knows this stuff. On her journey, she discovered everything about financing, joint ventures, and buying real estate. Liza has a wealth of information and wisdom about real estate sectors, both inside and outside the Canadian borders. So for those of you who are listening and you're in Canada, you are going to learn a lot. And if you're not in Canada, you will also learn a lot because Liza has experience in both areas. So you're in for a real treat. As the founder and leader of WREN, Liza feels compelled to provide opportunities for others, especially women, which is exactly what we focus on here on Financially Speaking. So it's a real pleasure. Also, to find women, for Liza's work with women, she helps them find their own creative and collaborative ways to learn about and prosper from real estate and related markets. She is currently in the process of purchasing a portfolio of investment properties with a group of women and has just partnered on the purchase of 150 acres of subdividable land near Victoria, BC. For those of you who don't know Canada, that's out on the West Coast. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And real estate is very much different on the West Coast as it is in central part of Canada where I am in Ontario. Versus all the way out on the East Coast. So this is a real treat for us, and I'm excited to have you here. Liza, welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness, I'm terrified now after that introduction. I've got lots to live up to. Thank you so much, Kathy. It's wonderful to be here. And there were so many things that you just said that I was like literally like scrambling to write down some notes, because I love it when we have so much synergy, right? Holistic is so important. And that's one of the things that women do more, especially in real estate. I mean, we do that in a lot of places, but in real estate for sure. Confused and in trouble. Who isn't confused right now? I mean, the world is a confusing place. So definitely great to talk about that. And I just love the fact that you love real estate. One of the things that I say a lot is, yeah, I love real estate, but I love the lifestyle. So for me, it's, I don't necessarily want to be picking up a hammer and working on the tools in real estate for the rest of my life. But I love the freedom and the lifestyle that having a good real estate portfolio can give you. And I'm a traveler, and I love to spend time in Mexico, and we're looking at buying property in Portugal and buying a couple of BFF mansions, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today. And I'm super excited to be here. So thank you again for having me.
It is really my pleasure, Liza. I've been looking forward to talking to you for a long time now. With a little bit of my background there, it has always been a predominantly male industry that you're working with. So when we come across women with your experience and expertise in an area that isn't really, I'm going to say, women friendly, because it's don't get me wrong, things have changed. Even in my world of finance, it's predominantly men. It's changing. It's for sure changing. But there's so much information out there, and I find that especially for women, when I talk to them about finance, and real estate falls in that same similar category, I should say, it's very much fear. There's a lot of fear that surrounds the topic. There's a lot of doubt on their ability to understand it, their ability to do it and do it well. It's funny. I don't know the stats on real estate, but I know the stats with finance, and women tend to be better investors, and they tend to have better understanding, and they make better moves. They make better decisions, and it's just kind of funny because they're the ones that are also doubt themselves the most. So with real estate, it's exciting to have you here, and I'm anxious to talk to you about a bunch of things. I know I want to talk to you about your book. I want to talk to you about the new development that you're working on. That sounds extremely exciting. I want to talk to you about collaborative work that you have with women. I want to talk to you about your WREN network. I need to book like 3 more hours with you. I can tell already. But I want to just jump right in and say, why don't I give you a chance to share a little bit about where you came from and how you got to where you are. And then let's talk about what you've got going on now and all these great projects.
It sounds great. And yes, I'm sure we could talk for days. So how did I end up where I am now? I'm a single woman, single by choice, no children by choice. I was one of those people who very early on decided that I wanted to be a little bit more of a gypsy and have lots of adventure. And so I've done lots of traveling. As you mentioned, I've worked on cruise ships. I've done river cruising in Europe. I've done 2 Olympic Games. I was fortunate enough to work in Sydney, Australia back in the year 2000, which was pre 9/11, which was pre all of the security, so we call it security theater in a lot of ways because some of it is kind of nonsensical. But oh my gosh, working in Sydney, Australia for the Olympic Games with the opening and closing ceremonies. And then the same team who produced the opening and closing ceremonies in Australia were the ones that were hired to produce the opening and closing ceremonies in Vancouver. So I got to work for them in Vancouver. So I love meeting people. I love traveling. I love collaboration. I love the diversity. The more we meet people around the world, the less fear we have, right? We talked about that. You talked about fear. The more we get to know each other, the more we realize that we really all want the same thing. We want health, safety, respect, trust, friendship, and family, right? And family can come in many different ways. And the world over, we're not that much different. So my traveling, my world adventures gave me, tons of confidence, tons of ability to always be meeting people. I learned very early, always be the first person in the room to say hi, or always be the first person to smile. And so when you're setting up a network, you want to emulate that, and you want to bring people in who are also going to be those people, because those are the people that we surround ourselves with. So the traveling, the work, the confidence, all of these are great things that, when I turned 40, which was 14 years ago, led me to kind of pause and think, okay, well, I've got this great life. I've kind of lived, almost like people dream of living when they retire. How am I going to retire? Right? Like, how am I actually going to be able to afford to retire with this great, traveling life? Because these jobs don't necessarily pay the kind of money that you're going to retire on. And most of them are contract based. And do banks like contract-based work? No, they don't. And who do you traditionally go to when you're looking for a mortgage? Traditionally, most of the population goes to a bank. So as I was kind of becoming a grown-up and realizing that I wanted to buy a house and put down some kind of roots, I was, really trying to learn as much as I could about real estate. And you said it, right? All of the things that I was learning mostly from men. And we have great men in the WREN group, and I've learned from great men, but they do speak a different language to women. And again, you said it, right? Women women are good investors, and part of the doubt that they have means they're going to do more due diligence. So they often make better decisions. So what I was noticing as I was going through this sort of reckoning and realization was, as I was learning about real estate and as I was learning about it from so many men, I realized that so many women were being left out of the picture. They weren't having the conversations. And I was meeting women at both ends of the age spectrum, young women who were, let's say younger than 30, who'd never talked to a banker before. They'd never gone in and applied for a loan. They didn't have a credit card yet. They knew nothing about establishing credit. They're like, oh, I don't need it. And I'm like, yeah, you do, And then on the other end of the age spectrum, tons and tons of women who are either single or widowed, have property and have a ton of equity sitting in it, and they're not doing anything with it. I mean, they could be helping their children to get into the real estate market, doing it as a gift or a loan. I mean, you can do it as a loan, but waiting until people die to get an inheritance when you could be helping to create your children as future millionaires and good, citizens of society, contributing, because the money thing isn't so much of an issue for them anymore. So I was meeting these women at both ends of the spectrum, and I really noticed there was a huge gap in real estate education, real estate knowledge, real estate investing by women. And I created WREN, and my mission is to get more women involved in real estate. And so WREN is the Women's Real Estate Network, and that is exactly what we are. We do have some men in the club, and we call them our enlightened guys. And we have lots of women, and we are all collaborators. And we love to travel, and we want to build our best life. And we look at things holistically, and we look at the wealth that real estate can bring, but we also look at aspects of our health and our lifestyle, and what do we want? What do we want for our futures? What do we want for the futures of our families? And what do we want for our communities?
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. That is so very exciting for me to hear, because that is something I remember with my dad talking about real estate. And that's how I got in, obviously, land development when I was doing that. And I remember being one of 17 people in the room, the only female. Mm-hmm. And that was 20 years ago. So, things change a little bit, but to have a network like that where women can go now and not just learn about it, but actually start to participate and do it, because there's a lot of courses out there you take and then there's no action after, whereas Absolutely. You have action, and the action is, let's face it, it's the fun part. So that's exciting that there's an action to go to. We're going to talk about WREN a little bit more. we're going to take our first break of the night. And when we come back, we have Liza all night. So we're going to talk to her about women in real estate and her network and how that works and the actual action part of it, which is very exciting, that development that she's working on now. We're going to talk about how to start, because starting is a big stumbling block for a lot of different areas, but especially in real estate, because your house and your car are usually your two biggest assets you end up buying. So it's nerve-wracking, especially to take your first step. And we're going to talk to Liza about how do you take that first step, because I think that's a really, really important part, especially for women, and that really starts the confidence and gets things rolling. So do not go anywhere. We are with Liza Rogers tonight. You are listening to Financially Speaking on the Inspired Choices Network, and we will be right back.
This is great.
Too many of us get caught up in the unreal lives of reality television and complete to acquire stuff, which is setting us up to accumulate lots of debt. We're scared, confused, and don't know who to talk to. By tuning into Financially Speaking radio show with financial advisor and educator Kathy Cook Noble, you'll learn tips you can use to improve your financial health, which in turn can improve your overall health and make for a very happy life. Live a life you can afford and enjoy. It is possible. Listen for Financially Speaking radio show every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, and 1 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Financially Speaking Show with financial advisor and educator Kathy Cook Noble. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Kathy@bookkeepplus.ca. Now back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Financially Speaking on the Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Kathy Cook Noble, and our very special guest is Liza Rogers, who is talking all things real estate tonight with us. And before we went to break, I mentioned that we want to talk about how to get started and what that looks like and how to take the plunge, but to do it in an organized way with some confidence, that you're not just randomly going out there and you see a piece of real estate and like, there you go, and it doesn't work. Because the one thing that, and we'll ask Liza, but I think that she would say, real estate is not something that you just randomly go out there and do and everybody makes money on it. We've all seen people lose money on it, and it's because they haven't done their homework or they haven't had the confidence to proceed when and where they should. So Liza, what do you say to people? How do you get them started in the whole process?
Great question. Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, it's excellent to have that conversation, right? Because that's what it's all about for so many people. How do you get started? People pick up a book, and then we know what that becomes. It becomes shelf-help, right? You take a course. 5% of people who take courses actually end up going through the course. We're fairly lucky in our network. We've got, I would say, between 25 and 35% of the network are actively investing or getting ready to. So we're pretty excited that the network is action takers, as you mentioned earlier. And I think one of the things that was interesting, just to bring up on the break, there was a note about the reality TV shows, right? I call them the HGTV romance. So who doesn't want a Scott McGillivray vacation home or something? And is that the reality? So I think there's the inspiration that's what kind of gets us sparked up. And then there's the actual starting. So those HGTV Brian Balmer and Scott McGillivray, and they're great guys, and they all have, great education programs themselves. But you're part of a really large machine, and it's sometimes hard to get started. So when getting started, the number one thing that I recommend is get yourself in a room with people who are like-minded and who have something in common with you. So for us, it's pretty obvious. I've already mentioned it a couple of times. We're mostly women, and we love the lifestyle that real estate provides. So we're looking at properties together in Mexico, and we're looking at properties together in Portugal. And we actually have these ideas that we don't want to go into a traditional retirement home, especially, now that we've seen what they look like after COVID. So we're going to set up our own, right? Why wouldn't you want to own your own personal mansion or apartment building somewhere and have your friends and fellow investors live and share in that with you? And why wouldn't you want to do that all over the world? So it's finding a group of people that are doing what you want to do. And sometimes you're not even sure, as you alluded to, you're not even sure where you want to jump in, right? Do I want to flip houses? Do I want to be a passive investor and lend money? Do I want to, do Airbnb properties and buy all kinds of vacation rentals? So when you get into the room with a group of people and go to as many free events as you can, because you're going to meet people there, and somewhere along the line, you're going to say, oh, this is my tribe. Right? These are the people I've been looking for. And it takes a while to get there, especially for the women, because you're going to go to a lot of them and there's going to be more men in the room. So find networks that are, full of women or full of like-minded people, and find out what they're doing, and then start asking questions. One of the things that if you're in the right group of people, nobody is going to, make you feel ashamed or embarrassed for asking a question. I mean, there's no stupid questions. Like, one of the things that I always say is, I like to be the dumbest person in the room, because if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm not in the right room, right? So don't be afraid to ask questions and just, jump in. So again, that getting started piece is, don't be afraid, get in the right room, surround yourself with like-minded people. So those are kind of the first things. Read as much as you can. Take the time to start to think about what areas of real estate you want to be in. And you alluded to it as well. Don't just jump in, because real estate is not a short-term game. It's a long-term thing. And if someone's offering you a get-rich-quick scheme, that's probably exactly what it is. It's probably a scheme. Once in a while, something comes along, and there might be an opportunity to make a quick buck, but that doesn't happen very often. And the longer-term plays are going to be, much more stable. There's much more due diligence that goes into them. They're less risky. They've been vetted more deeply by lawyers and accountants. They might have been subject to an audit. You can go through the paperwork. So those kinds of deals where you've got the opportunity to participate in something long-term with long-term stability, those are the things that really are going to give you the confidence and give you the safety, so that if something, does not go completely to plan, because as we've again alluded to, everybody's lost money in real estate, right? Because everybody's done something, made a mistake, didn't have the right team to help pull things together, and somewhere along the line, a ball's been dropped. What you want to do from that is learn from it. We call that the tuition. Don't give up. Take that as your tuition and say, okay, what did I learn from this opportunity, and what am I not going to do again, right? You're going to get an investor-focused lawyer. You're going to get an investor-focused realtor. If you're using a realtor who doesn't own property, you're using the wrong realtor. I mean, we actually have real estate agents who don't own a single property, let alone investment properties. All of my realtors own probably over 100 doors each. And so they are in it. They're in the game. They can speak the language. And they'll say to me, you're not buying this property. How many realtors do you have out there who would say to you, I don't want you to buy this property? So surrounding yourself with the right people, taking those first steps to get started, getting the education, getting in the room with people who are like-minded. And part of it is just committing to doing it, right? Commit to it. And I would say lastly is, and this is something we talk about all the time, figure out what your why is. Right? Why are you choosing real estate? And once you kind of can answer those questions, that then gives you the momentum to keep moving forward. I mean, for me, my mom is a single mom. She's semi-retired now. She loves to spend time in Florida. And when I look at, her life, and as I mentioned earlier, I want to be able to retire and have a great life. I don't want to be struggling as a, 75, 80-year-old woman. So, my why is my mom and being able to give her a great life moving forward and as she retires. And I want to be able to give myself a great life. And so real estate for me is when I'm having a hard time and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I just look at the future and I say, you know what? I'm creating my own path, and real estate is helping me do that. And that, that cementing that in is a really important part of it.
That is excellent, and I could not agree with you more. It's funny. I find real estate and financial conversations go very closely together. And I just had this last week actually, and I'll get your take on the real estate market that we're in now, because we had an incredible upswing in the pricing, like really in an abnormal way where the valuations weren't justifying what the prices were. And then the feds and the federal government here and the Federal Reserve in the US, they've been doing what they can, certain things to cool it, mostly with raising the rates. And they've cooled it a little bit. But if your property, and this is the thing that people need to, sometimes can't wrap their head around, your property just went up 150%. And it cooled by 25%, you're still up 125%. Because I started to have people say, oh, I don't know, I missed the whole thing. And I'm like, how did you miss it? You're up 125 on a net. So that's where, I just had this conversation with someone last week, and we're deciding, should we be investing our money or should we be buying a rental property that is coming up available? And these are questions that I get quite a bit now because of, I get them I used to get them anyway, but a lot more because of the real estate in the press that you heard so much about and saw so much about. So what do you say to people about, is this the time, or what do you think is happening in the real estate market? Where's it going to go? Well, if I buy now, is it going to crash next year? Am I going to lose all my money? What do you think about those kind of questions?
Yeah, those are the questions that everybody's asking, right? I mean, anybody who's new to real estate is certainly asking those questions. And who are we to think we have a crystal ball that we have the answers? But what we can do is look at the past, and we can look at, in times of crisis, always comes opportunity. In times of inflation, where everybody's running for the hills, those are when the Warren Buffetts of the world pick up the bargains, right? I mean, I remember, speaking of Scott McGillivray, he tells a story about how he bought on auction, I think it was something like 30 properties in 2008 or 2009, right when the US global financial crisis hit. People were like leaving their doors, leaving their keys and just walking away, and houses were on auction. And he went up and, literally bought them on an auction, and had to basically pay the price of the administration fee, and sold them all, 5 or 6 years later. I think he bought the whole group for something like, I don't know, it was something ridiculous, like $30,000, and then sold each of them for $300,000 over the next few years. So crisis and uncertainty, like one of the things, again, that I talk about is, and maybe it's because I've been a little bit of a gypsy and I've moved around a lot, all of my best decisions and the things that have changed my life and propelled me like at a rocket speed pace into the future have all happened in times of uncertainty. And I just got the full body shivers. So whenever that happens, that's the universe telling me that, I've said something that's profound or true. So
Absolutely.
for me, it's, uncertainty, times of crisis, right? There's a number of data statistics that show, what happened after World War I. Well, suddenly, World War II in particular, well, suddenly the government wanted build automobiles, get people back to work building roads, created the subdivision. Everybody in North America suddenly was able to buy a home, right? So who would have predicted that? 2008 financial crisis, right? Again, it's fairly recently, homes dropping in price. Vancouver and Toronto were barely kind of scathed by that. I think we went down a little bit, as you had mentioned too, on paper, things went down a little, but you're not actually seeing that loss unless you actually sell for that loss. Otherwise, it's just a blip in time. And so you have to look at the long game. Again, it's looking at real estate in a 7 to 10 year cycle. If you're looking at it in a 5-year cycle, you might actually see, a decline, and you haven't given it enough time to recover. If you look in a 7 to 10 year cycle, you can pretty much historically look at any time period over 7 to 10 years in real estate, and it's always on the upswing. And that goes from the time that they've pretty much been keeping records. There's always an incline. Look at any graph, look at anything over that cycle. So 7 to 10 years is key. You're going to see that upswing. One of the other things that for us in particular, we collaborate. So when you collaborate, you can buy things that aren't necessarily the thing that is creating all of the panic in the market. So we all know that we have an affordable housing crisis. We have a housing crisis in North America in general. We didn't keep up to the amount of building that needed to be done after the 2008 crash. And so we're short on housing pretty much everywhere. So what most people are looking for when they're looking at housing, and especially to buy, they're looking at a condo, a townhome, a single family home. So what do we look at? We are looking at fourplexes, small apartment buildings, unique properties, mobile home parks, tiny home villages, right? That's going to be the big thing of the future. So for example, we just removed subjects a week ago on an 8-unit apartment building right across the street from the beach in Victoria. And oh my gosh, it is a gorgeous little property. And we've bought it as a group of friends, and we're going to move into it. Like, it's going to be our own personal retirement home, and we're going to move into it. And when we look at the amount of money that it was to purchase it, per door, it's cheaper by probably $100,000 or more than we would ever be able to get into a condo or a townhome or a home on our own. And now we've got like our own, personal property managers built in, right? So we're taking less risk. We've always got someone to look after our property. We've got what's been referred to by a couple of our investors as a trophy property, because it's across the street from the water, 15,000 square foot lot. It's never going to go down in value, right? It might go down a little bit this year, but are we going to sell it? No bloody way. We're probably going to hold on to this thing forever. So the timing of the market is where sometimes people get tripped up. So when everybody panics, that's when it's time to just, do more than read the headlines. The headlines are meant to instill fear and panic. That's what their job is. Read to the bottom of the story and see, what are the other sides of the story? Because if you're reading just the headlines, you're not getting the full story. And then anything that you're reading that's kind of giving you one side, balance it out with the other side. Because if there's something terrible happening to one group of people, you can bet that there's another group of people that are going to capitalize on that. And do you want to be on the group that's being taken advantage of, or do you want to be on the group that's got the knowledge, has the team, and can make the decisions based on having all of the information?
Absolutely. And there's so much you said that I could just sub the word finance or investing in. And, when you mentioned people like Warren Buffett, and he's always famous for saying, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. Yeah. And the whole market and real estate and finance, it's all based on emotion of reporting, but the success is based on having no emotion and being able to take the emotion out of it. And I find that when people truly understand that, that's when they can start doing more in terms of, expanding their portfolios in real estate and investing and whatever the case is. But I do have to ask you, because I keep having this image of Golden Girls come in my head when you mentioned the co-housing movement. And I think, wow, well, those guys were onto something. So I want to ask you, with the co-housing movement, just maybe explain a little bit more to it, because I was on your website, and it's a great website, by the way. Thank you. I saw some really great, easy to understand information. So maybe just explain the co-housing movement.
Absolutely.
I know you've kind of alluded to it, but and then how people should look at it and really view that in terms of, I'm not just living with somebody like I'm in university. That's not what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And the co-housing movement, co-housing and co-living, I can talk about this for weeks and from so many different angles. So first of all, I like to say, having worked on cruise ships, I lived on the largest floating co-housing platform, right? I was, a minute away from my boyfriend, a minute away from my ex-boyfriend, and then a minute away from the captain. And all of those people wanted to know what you were doing at all times. So, there were things about it that were, not so great, but there were things about it that were fantastic as well, right? You've got a built-in sense of community, and you've got a mini United Nations, and you can have a conversation about anything at any time. So the co-housing piece, and we also talk a little bit about co-living, and I'm happy to explain the difference. But the co-housing piece, when you think of it, think of how we used to live. So when I talk about World War I and suddenly World War II, and suddenly highways and automobiles and everybody was able to go and live in their, 1,500 or 2,500 square foot silo, right? And that the identification of success, like the definition of success was, I did it and I did it on my own. And now I live in this great house with just my family and my 2.5 cars and my 2.3 children, and that's success. But if we go back to how we used to live, we lived multi-generationally with our families, with grandparents, with the kids. The kids weren't like kicked out at 19. I mean, gosh, I remember when I was dating someone when I was 25, and he was a Romanian man, and he still lived at home because that was what the tradition was. And I was like, dude, you still live at home? Ew, like move out. What are you, a child, right? You're 28 years old, move out from home. And he's like, why would I do that? Romanians don't move out until they get married. So culturally, we have for so long in North America looked at this individualism as success. And what we're seeing now with all of the mental health issues that we have, at both ends of the AIDS spectrum, what is the other epidemic or pandemic that we're struggling with right now? Globally speaking, it's loneliness. And that is happening at the youth level and the seniors level. And part of that is because those two groups of people don't have as much opportunity to interact easily. And so the whole co-housing thing is, it's much easier to live in a community where you're surrounded by multi-generational people, and throw in multi-ethnic, multicultural as well, and you've got an even better community. So co-housing is growing in the idea now that the whole tiny home movement, right? Like, let's get a group of people together and live in our tiny homes. Mobile home parks are becoming more popular again, because when you talk to people who live in a mobile home park, the number one thing they say is, I have community here and someone's always got my back. Now we may have a stigma around mobile home park that the trailer park boys didn't make any better for us. But if you look at the history of mobile home parks going back to the 1930s, when the Airstreams first started becoming popular, they were actually for the affluent. Like, it was people who had money who had the Airstreams. It wasn't, just some people who we consider to be, at the low end of the income spectrum. There are mobile home parks where, you might be paying $20,000 in pad rent per month, because everybody wants to live at the Malibu Beach mobile home park, right? So it really, the co-housing movement is really more about, if you want to live your best life as you kind of are going through the age spectrum of living on your own, if you like to be social and you want to share, resources, sharing the tools, sharing the lawnmower, having maybe smaller suites, but then having a big communal kitchen built into your co-housing unit, it just makes it more affordable on many scales, but that doesn't have to be the driving factor. Gives you that built-in community, reduces stress around mental health. And yes, with the Golden Girls thing, I mean, that's the ultimate dream, right? And especially for women, the average age of a widow in Canada and the US is 56 years old. So women are going to lose their spouses unexpectedly. And there's a whole bunch of data around why that is and how that happens. Women are outliving men by an average of about 30 years, and women are remaining single longer and not necessarily getting remarried. So as a woman, you can expect that you're going to live 30 years on your own. So wouldn't it be great to, live with your Golden Girls tribe, right? And so that is something that we've already kind of started on, and this 8-unit apartment building that I'm talking about, that's pretty much the first official one. We've had a couple where we've leased a couple of properties before, but this one we're buying, moving into, and then we're looking at one in Mexico and Portugal, and we still have space for 1 or 2 more people. So if anybody's really interested in coming and living out here on the West Coast, let me know fast. And the co-living piece of that is very similar, but rather than having your own unit with a self-contained kitchen and a self-contained, your own bathroom, you're actually sharing a house. So that would be like what we call the BFF mansion, where you buy a big old house with oversized rooms and lots of bathrooms, but you're actually sharing the house. And again, that can be, financially, but not necessarily financially driven. It can be, you travel a lot, and so you don't necessarily want to have a place that's empty a lot, but you want to, see your friends when you're back in town for 6 months of the year. And just as a different way to look at it. And they are definitely growing because we want to get back to the way we used to live, which was in community. The old saying, it takes a village, right? And that's what we've lost, and that's what people are looking for again.
Absolutely. And from that, I want to ask you, so how? So we all know what we're talking about now. The question everybody always has is how? How do I find this group? How do I start building an investment team? How do I make the transition from where I am to where I want to be? It's the how that gets in between that I find really stumbles people and really just paralyzes them from making the move. So how do you go about finding your supportive group? How do you go about starting to build your investment portfolio with real estate? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, great question. And yes, the how is often the stumbling block, right? So again, number one, find a group of like-minded people who have already done it. They're either doing it or they've done it. And there are networks, meetup platform, Facebook groups. There's networks everywhere. Google it on the internet, right? Collaborative purchasing groups or collaborative investing groups, or women's only investors, or whatever it is, people who surf, who own property in Hawaii, right? I mean, whatever it is you're looking for nowadays, with the way that information is so accessible, you're guaranteed to be able to find it, and you should be able to find it fairly easily. And if you can't find it yourself, then reach out, right? If you're interested in real estate, call a realtor and say, look, I'm interested in joining a real estate group. Here's what I'm looking for. Do you have one that you can recommend? Nine times out of 10, you're going to find a realtor who's either part of a group or knows of a group. Reach out to us. Obviously, Kathy, you've probably got groups. I've got our group, and then we're connected to lots of other groups as well. So it's taking that first step, right? It's pick up the book. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the book, right? But there's 10 women in here who wrote about their real estate journeys. Reach out to any one of them and say, look, I'm just getting started. What are, can you give me 10 or 15 minutes and tell me, who do I need to call to get started? What do I need to do? And for us, I mean, we have a part of the team, part of the whole point of the how is building a great team. And so we have built a great team. I mean, with WREN, I started it 6 years ago. And I started it with an investor-focused realtor. I started with investor-focused lawyers. I started with people who offer, more than just what I call the HGTV romance, right? I didn't want to just flip houses. I wanted to diversify. I wanted to, with my passion for tourism and travel, I knew for me, I'd want to have an executive rental or an Airbnb. So I was looking at, what are people doing? What are the best practices there? I mean, I was one of those people who stood at the City of Victoria council chambers and yelled at the council when they wanted to take it away from us. And so, participating in all of the different things that have impact on what you're doing. I mean, we're coming into municipal elections this year. So if you want to be involved in real estate, then figure out who in your municipality is going to support the kinds of things that you're doing. Developers in particular get a bad rap all the time, right? The big bad developer. It's like, well, how many houses has the government built this year, right? If you go and ask your municipality, your provincial government, your federal government, go and ask them, how many actual houses have you built, constructed, and put people in this year? And developers will be able to beat that number every day of the week. So if developers aren't building, the houses aren't getting built. So developers need to be able to keep building so we can keep providing housing, because no one else is providing it. So that's where, again, that being a responsible citizen, going out and voting, picking the people in different government levels who are supporting what you need to be able to do to get your investing and your real estate on track. Those are kind of the key things that I can think about. The house, there's always the books, right? And if you're going to pick up a book, commit to doing something in that book. So if you pick up a book, and it gives you 10 tips on getting started in real estate, try to do one every week. Pick up a notebook and write down what you're going to do. I always say, the best thing to do if you want to move forward is to write it down, because when you pick up a pen and you actually commit it to paper, there's something psychologically that changes it. And it's like, oh yeah, I wrote that down. I got to do that now, right? So it changes it. So pick up a book, join a group, take some kind of first step action, start building your team by picking up the phone, going out and meeting people, go for coffee with someone, and then just take those first little steps. I mean, a lot of people in the group, it might take them a year to make those first steps. And that's okay, because that means that you're learning, you're gathering information, you're making the decision on what's going to be right for you. And then when the right thing comes along, you're ready to take action. Getting your finances cleaned up. We haven't even talked about that yet. Doing a budget is the number one thing that people hate to do, that is going to give them a clearer picture of where they are at, so they understand what they need to improve in their budget so they can get to where they want to go. So that's another Absolutely. Huge thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. And we're gonna take our last break of the night, actually. And when we come back, you mentioned your book, and I do want to talk about that and what's in the book. But before we go to break, I do want to mention, we've talked a lot about WREN, we've talked about different things, but we haven't actually given the website. So it's WREN.club, CLUB.
It is. That's it. Yep.
I just want to put that out there, because I know if anyone's listening that they're going to be thinking, well, you mentioned WREN, and it's WREN.club.
Yep,
so
exactly.
That's where you can go and find Liza and the group. There's a lot of stuff that you've actually been talking about that we match on this end on the financial side, which is extremely cool. And we're going to take our last break, though, and we're going to have a quick conversation about our book. So Liza, we'll talk to you when we get back from our last break. So don't go anywhere. You are listening to Financially Speaking on the Inspired Choices Network. We will be right back.
Too many of us get caught up in the unreal lives of reality television and complete to acquire stuff, which is setting us up to accumulate lots of debt. We're scared, confused, and don't know who to talk to. By tuning into Financially Speaking radio show with financial advisor and educator Kathy Cook Noble, you'll learn tips you can use to improve your financial health, which in turn can improve your overall health and make for a very happy life. Live a life you can afford and enjoy. It is possible. Listen for Financially Speaking radio show every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, and 1 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Financially Speaking Show with financial advisor and educator Kathy Cook Noble. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Kathy@bookkeepplus.ca. Now back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Financially Speaking on the Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Kathy Cook Noble. Our very special guest has been all night with us, Liza Rogers, and we only have about 5 minutes left. I'm about to do a very shameless plug that I never do, but Christine, I know you're out there. I'm sharing my book because the stuff we talked about tonight, the only reason I ever got involved in writing a book was because I found that women asked lots of questions that they were scared of and didn't know the answers to. I also knew that, exactly, Liza mentioned it earlier, that at some point in time you're going to be single, whether it's by choice, by widow, by divorce, by any other option that you make. either you delay becoming single because you're afraid of taking the plunge financially, or whatever the case may be. And I've dealt with a lot of women, and that is my main focus, and that is why the book was written. And that is who it is for, to make sure that you are taken care of and you're looking after yourself financially. So I'm just putting that shameless plug out there for my friend Christine, because if I don't, I will probably get a phone call or text later. But it is, all ladies should use the F word, a guide to loving your finances. And it's also a guide for understanding your finances, because it is not hard. And it's like Liza has been talking about tonight, real estate is exciting. It is not hard in the sense that you can't understand it as women. You absolutely can. It's the same thing I say every night on the show, is that you can understand your finances. You can understand real estate. I have 3 minutes left. I can't even believe this. But Liza, share with us your book, show your picture of the book, and everyone go to Amazon. It's available there. I checked, it's still there. It's From Ordinary to Ordinary, and it's a success story. It's got women sharing their stories about success in real estate, women like you and me and your neighbor and your sister and your cousin and your stranger that you just passed on the street. These are all women that you know and will recognize. Liza, am I doing that?
Yeah,
correctly? Is that summarizing it right?
Absolutely. From ordinary to extraordinary, 10 success stories of women from across Canada. And yes, exactly, right? We're all different walks of life, and we've all used real estate to leverage our future. And none of us started with, a silver spoon in our mouth. So it's been a great journey. And I also have it available on the website, on the WREN.club site. And you can order a hard copy, and we'll actually put you a hard copy in the mail. Nice. And you can also get the PDF version from us or from Amazon.
Beautiful. And what is next for you? I know the apartment you just mentioned, and you're obviously, I know just from talking to you tonight, you're going to be growing and doing all kinds of cool and wonderful things. What's next in your vision right now?
Yeah, so right now, one of the things that you mentioned right at the beginning was the property that we bought out in Souk, 145 acres. So I managed to buy that with a partner just over a year ago, and we have just finished subdividing it. Oh, wow. Land is an interesting beast to conquer. And again, you don't have to know it all. You just have to have good people, right? I mean, I didn't know anything about building roads, putting up a cell tower, drilling a well, right? The things that we had to learn, you just have to be open to learn them, and you got to be open to ask questions and put your trust in the experts, and then know when to, question what the experts are doing as well. So we will be selling 4 10-acre parcels, and we'll be keeping some for ourselves, and we'll probably sell a 40-acre chunk after we've sold the 10-acre parcels. But that was a huge, scary thing for me to do, and that's next on the agenda, is to to go through the process of selling raw land, doing that piece, nice. and then just getting the 8-unit apartment building that we've just bought stabilized and closed. We close on September 7th. And I'm moving into it. I'm actually moving in first as a tenant, because there was a vacancy, so it made sense for me to move in as a tenant. So I'm moving in. We'll get it stabilized. We'll get to know the area, and then we'll start the process of moving in our BFFs, and we'll have this amazing property, our first Golden Girls property, with a few golden men.
I love it. That's awesome. And I have, oh gosh, I only have a minute left, darn it. But if I can just add on there, when you said about, getting involved and trusting the experts, and also trust your intuition. I have found that women have the best intuition, and every time I've gone against my gut, I could kick myself because I knew it was right, but you get rational and you talk yourself out of it, or you listen to other people. And women have great instincts when it comes to money, whether it's buying property, whether it's investing it, whether it's price matching on groceries, whether it's looking for sales. They're very, very good at with money. So
I agree. Intuition. Yeah, intuition is huge, right? Yeah. It's that gut feeling. Is your gut and your heart saying this feels like a good decision? Exactly. I mean, still do the due diligence, but if it feels good, I get the full body shivers, and you'll hear me like when that's when that happens, and it happens often, it's like, okay, that's my intuition, right? That's it saying ding, 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 go, 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 go.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you so much. I have 15 seconds left. I could talk to you for another 2 hours easily, but I want to thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, check out WREN.club. You can find Liza there. You can find the book there. Plug yourself in, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Financially Speaking Radio Show. Kathy Cook Noble will return next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, and 1 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by making the choices that bring you all that you desire.